do a few things in Photoshop that we didn't get to cover yesterday in class, and then also maybe review a couple things in the process. So I've opened Photoshop. I'm going to start a new file. So just as a reminder, I'll walk through those steps. So File, New. And then our dimensions are 8 by 8 inches. 300 is our resolution, and we are grayscale. So we can just look something like that. Okay. There's my file. So one thing that you might want to do is just automatically start a new layer above your background layer so that you can work on it, and then your background layer stays behind everything. If you don't want that background layer to be white, you'll need to unlock it to edit it. So you can just double click on the lock and it'll unlock so that you can edit it. So just for today, for the demo, I'm going to make that background gray. So I'm just clicking on the paint bucket. You may have the gradient tool up, but if you hold down the mouse, you can see the paint bucket is nested under there. My foreground color is gray, so if I click on that, I can also choose like a lighter gray. You can also choose your colors from this swatches panel, and I pulled that up just by going to Window, Swatches, and it comes up that way. And this is a great palette because you can see all the grays are already kind of laid out for you in here, so you can easily just choose like a light gray to fill, and that way you can always come back and choose the same colors over and over again. So I'm going to start with just a light gray area in the background, and then if you want to lock that layer, you can, just so that you don't mess with it and you can build stuff back on top of it. Another window that I'd like to show you is this history window. So this again came up by going to Window and History and pulling that up. And the history window basically just shows all of the steps that you've done since you started making the file. It's a good way to undo things and to kind of step backwards. So you can see that it goes back to what I did before. It's kind of a way to undo. The thing about the history window is that it's limited in how many steps back you can go. That can be changed under Photoshop preferences, but it's usually set to, I think, like about 20 steps so that you can step back that far. So sometimes that's useful to kind of see what you did. So I pulled that one up just to have it up. Let's see, what else do we need to look at? So let's just start working on this file so I can show you a couple of things. We didn't talk about saving yesterday, and I think that's an important thing to talk about. So if you want to save your file, you can just go to File and Save. It'll pull up this dialog box. What's important is to pay attention to where you're saving it to. So I'm going to save it to the desktop. If you have a folder that you're working on, you could click New Folder down here at the bottom, and I could name it, Shape Compositions, create that, and then I could save it there. So I could save this one as, I don't know, I'm just going to call it Demo 1. What's important here is to be sure that you're saving it as this Photoshop file. It'll have this PSD extension on the back. If you save it, some of the other formats that we typically might use in class are a JPEG or even a PDF, but those will flatten your file and get rid of all of these layers. And so especially in the working rounds, you don't really want to get rid of those layers so that they can stay editable. So I'm just saving it as a Photoshop file, and that's fine. You can just say OK. And then now it's saved. So now as I'm working, I can just hit the shortcut Command S, you can see it right here, to save my file as I'm working. My biggest advice to you is to save and save often. I am constantly just hitting Command S as I'm working to save my file. If you want to save a different version of your file, you can always do Save As, and then you can name it a different name if you wanted to save a different version of it. But make sure that you save in case something goes wrong while you're working. So let's do a couple things just to get started. So I'm going to choose my Shape tool down here. I'm going to choose the ellipse. I'm going to make an oval. I'm going to make an oval that looks like, let's see, like that. I'm going to fill it with white. Okay. So there's my oval that I'm going to play with. And then maybe I'll make another shape with my Shape tool. I'm going to do polygon. If you click on the artboard with the polygon, this is how you would create triangles. So a triangle has 3 sides, so I would type in the word 3. I mean the number 3, and then you can choose the width and the height. Like we know that our artboard is 8 inches tall by 8 inches wide. So let's say I want to make a triangle that's 3 inches wide by, I'm going to make it tall, 8 inches tall. So then I'll hit OK. And then I've got a triangle. So that's an easy way to create a triangle. Now I want to start messing with these two and just playing around with it to show you some tricks. So I'm going to rasterize these layers. So I'll go over to my layers panel. I'm going to close this properties tab. Put that over here. I'm going to stretch this out so I can see. I'm going to hit Control and click and rasterize the layer. Make sure that you're clicking on the blue section because that's the only way this panel will come up. If you hit Control and click on the word, it won't happen, and Control and click on this, it won't happen. So you have to click on those to have it make sense. Here are some controls you may not know about. If you click on there, you can choose like large thumbnails to make your thumbnails giant if you want. So you can do that. You can also name your layers. So if you double click on the word, you can name your layers whatever you want. So that might be useful for you. So I rasterized both these layers. And a couple of things that we talked about before are that you can play with your blending modes here. You can play with opacity to create some interesting effects, but I'm going to show you how to kind of divide up the shapes to do some other things too. So one thing that you might consider doing is thinking about that when the shapes overlap each other, you create something interesting happening in that area where they overlap. So if I go to the ellipse here and I get, this is the magic wand. So we worked with these selection tools in class, but the magic wand is a different one. So the magic wand, basically what it does is it selects everything that is similar in the image. So if I click on the white, for instance, you can see that it gets the marching ants around the white. So it'll select only that section. If I then get the move tool, you can see that it lets me move around, you know, that shape if I want to move that shape around. So just for fun, I'm just going to do that just to move it. But now you can see that these two are on the same layer. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. So let me undo what I just did. So I'm going to copy that shape. I'm going to paste that shape, and then you can see it now put it on a new layer right here. So I can move that around. Oh, I should have cut it. Sorry. Let me step back. So instead of copying, what I'm going to do this time is cut the shape. There we go. And then paste it. There we go. And now it's separate. So you can see I have this right here. Now, a really quick shortcut is that to copy something, you can hold down the Option key and you get this double arrow. You have to be in the Move tool to do that. But then I can just click and drag, and you can see that it automatically created a new layer. You can also hold down the Option key and click and drag on a layer, and it will copy that layer for you also. So you can see that it copied all of those. I can move these back behind here if I want. Move all these guys back here. I'm going to delete this one. I can actually just drag this layer down to this little trash can to get rid of it. Okay, so here's my 3 little ovals that I have here. So one thing that I want to do is maybe think about where these things overlap, creating something kind of interesting in that area. So I'll just show you some selection tools. If I click on this and I use the magic wand, I'm going to click that, and you can see that it's selecting everything that's in the in that selection tool. It's white, right? That's where it is. So you can see this. So to add or subtract from selections, it's really easy. So I'm just going to show you a couple tricks, and then we'll go over this in the selection tools. I'll talk about this in another video even more. But with these selection tools, you can easily add or subtract from the selections that you see here. So let's say that I wanted to do something to this, but I didn't want to do anything to half of it, okay? So I'm going to go up here and choose a different selection tool. You can alternate between any of the selection tools, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to hold down the Option key, and if you see on the board there, you can see next to the little target, that there's a negative sign that comes up. So if I then draw a box and let go, now the marching ants are only on this side, so that I took away part of that selection to do something to that. To add to that, let's say that I wanted to, I don't know why, but let's say I wanted to add to the selection. So I'm going to hold down Shift, and if I draw a box here just to see what happens, you can see now my selection looks like this. So if I filled that in, you can see now my shape looks like this. So you can add and subtract from selections really easily with using the lasso tool. I like the polygonal lasso tool a lot. So let's say you were drawing a shape and then you wanted to add to that shape. I could hold down Shift. And then I have another shape there. Just going to fill that guy in for fun. So it's an easy way to kind of add and subtract from shapes. If I wanted to delete something out of the middle of this shape, let's say just a circle for whatever reason, I could then hit delete. Now I have like a weird kind of interesting shape that I can see through. So you can see there's some variation here of all those different things. So one way that I think it's useful to think about using selection tools is if you see this oval here, I'm going to use the magic wand. I'm going to select it. And then what I'm going to do is with that selected, I'm just going to go to my triangle layer. And I'm going to cut. So what you can see if I move this now is that it cut the shape of that out of this. So I made my selection on one layer and then I cut it out of another layer. So right now I have a hole, right, that it made. So that's fine. But if I paste it, you can see that it pastes this little piece that I cut out onto another layer. So with that guy, I could select it, and maybe I'll select, and I'll make it a different color. So maybe I'll just make it a gray. Let me choose a gray from my swatches panel. Sorry, find my swatches. They're there. And then I can fill that with gray. Now if I line this guy back up, and I'm using just my up and down arrow keys to kind of nudge this into place. So now if I do that, it kind of looks like that is changing colors, you know, where these two things overlap. So that's kind of a fun way to play with the way that you select things. So here I can do it again. So if I use my magic wand, select my shape, I'm going to go to my triangle layer. So you can see I'm on my triangle layer. And this time maybe what I'll do is I'm going to cut it. And then I'll paste it. And you can see it's here. Let me show you a trick real quick. If I paste in place, if I go to paste special, it'll put it right where it was, so then you don't have to worry about dealing with it, you know, landing it somewhere else. So maybe I'll color that one. So now where they overlap, it looks like it's a different color, and this is a way to control those colors. Whereas if you just use opacity, so let's make our triangle less opaque just to see. If I use opacity, you can see I just end up with whatever that looks like rather than being able to control what that color is where they overlap. Okay, I think we're going to stop there for this video, and then I'll catch you in the next video with a few other tips.